If you're tuning into today's episode, then you probably need to hear this one, and trust me, so did I. We're talking about that sneaky little monster that has lived rent-free in all of our heads at some point, imposter syndrome. You know that little voice that says, who do you think you are to do this? When you're just trying to live your life, we're evicting that today. Let me just say this. If you feel like you're one misstep from somebody discovering you don't know what you're doing, you're not alone. And I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. You are far more capable than you give yourself credit for. So get comfortable, grab your coffee, grab your tea, whatever fuels your soul, and let's dive into 5 steps on how you can break free from imposter syndrome. It's time to tune in and shift with me. Welcome back to the On Some Real Shift podcast, where I have real conversations on what it takes to shift your mindset and uplevel your emotional and spiritual life. I'm your coach, Vanessa. Actually, I'm your host, Vanessa, but I am a coach. I am a certified life coach, mindset transformation coach, NLP practitioner, Reiki and sound bath healer, but most importantly, I am a student of the university, as I like to say. Welcome back, episode 5. I'm really excited. So let's just get into it and break down what imposter syndrome even is. It's that persistent feeling of self-doubt where you have convinced yourself that you're a fraud. It is that voice that tells you that any success that you have achieved is due to luck or timing, but definitely not because you're good at that thing that you do. It's like your inner critic becomes a full-blown heckler with a megaphone. Studies show that at least 70% of people have reported feeling imposter syndrome at least one time in their life. That means it's not just you. It includes high achievers, CEOs, founders. Even Michelle Obama has admitted to feeling imposter syndrome. So if she can admit it, why can't we? Here's a funny thought. Think about if babies had imposter syndrome and they said to themselves, who am I to learn to walk? I'm just going to crawl forever. That's ridiculous, right? But that is the energy that we are channeling when we let imposter syndrome run the show. Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's unpack where this crusty little gremlin came from. And you probably have already guessed it. It's usually somewhere from our childhood. Maybe you were a perfectionist growing up, or you were constantly praised for being smart or talented rather than your effort. So every time you try something new, you're now terrified that you're not going to live up to that label, to that standard that you have had set for yourself since you were a kid. Or maybe it's societal, and let's get really real. Women and people of color and anybody stepping into spaces where they have historically been underrepresented feel this tenfold, which makes sense because when you don't see people who look like you at the top or in these spaces, then it's very easy to make it feel like you don't belong. I'll be really honest, it took me a while to start this podcast because I kept asking myself, Vanessa, who are you to be giving advice? Who are you to be sharing your experiences? Who's going to want to listen to you? I would second guess nearly every step that I was not taking with the show because I had already told myself that I wasn't good enough. But here's the thing, I did not allow that to stop me. It slowed me down for a minute, but I didn't let it stop me. And neither should yours. This show is barely a month old, and I have already received opportunities that I literally would have never been able to have had I not launched it. Nobody is exempt from these feelings. Even those of us who are in the space of inner wellness, we feel it too. Good news is I have 5 steps to help you kick imposter syndrome to the curb. Step 1 is to acknowledge it. We have to recognize when it's happening. When that voice that says that you're not enough starts creeping in, point it out. Give it a name if you want. That's what I do, and it works wonders. I've named mine Ursula. When she shows up, I say, Ursula, I did not invite you here. And I get it, it might sound silly to some people, but it really does help when you give it a name because you can step back and ask yourself, are these my thoughts or are these Ursula's thoughts? And 9 times out of 10, they're Ursula's. Not only do I give it a name, but I give it characteristics. I think that Ursula is slimy, is self-serving, not to be trusted, all things that I do not actually resonate with. So it's easy for me to step back and say, yeah, that's not me, that's Ursula. I didn't invite you to the conversation, goodbye. Step 2 is to flip the script, change the narrative. Every time you catch yourself thinking, I'm not qualified for this, I want you to reframe it and say, I am learning as I go, and that is okay. Reframing is everything. I want you to take a moment and think of one limiting belief that you have had recently, okay? Think about it. You got it? Okay. Now flip it. I want you to turn, I'm not experienced enough in XYZ to I am gaining experience in XYZ every day. See, we tend to put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves to be the master at this thing right away, when very rarely we're ever born a master of anything, right? And even if you're naturally talented at this one thing, I guarantee you are 10 times better now than you were when you first started. Usually nobody is putting that expectation on you other than you. And who benefits from that? Do you? I don't think so. Step 3 is celebrate your wins. Imposters do not celebrate, they downplay. I want you to keep a win journal, whether you write it down physically in your notes app. Personally, I like to do videos to myself. In this journal, I want you to write down all of your accomplishments, small and large. Got through a shitty meeting? Win. Finished a project early? Win. Talked yourself out of an intrusive thought? Win. Survived a Monday? Big win. See, because our brains believe everything we tell it, and I do mean everything, so the way we talk to ourselves really does matter. You start accumulating these wins and building more confidence, building more self-esteem. The more you tell yourself that you're not capable, that you're not worthy, your body's going to believe that, and then your reality becomes a reflection of that. Our thoughts absolutely manifest in the 3D world. So which narrative do you want to attach yourself to? Step 4 is to talk about it. One of the best ways to dissolve imposter syndrome is to share it with a trusted friend, family member, therapist, even a coach. You'll find that in these conversations that they will probably share that they have felt the same way at least once in their lives. And if they really know you, they'll probably point out all the ways that you are not an imposter without you even asking. It's really comforting to know that you're not alone. Step number 5 is probably the hardest, and it is take action anyway. The raw truth is the only way to get through imposter syndrome is to keep going in despite of it. Just like stacking these positive thoughts about ourselves, action creates confidence. Every time you prove to yourself that you can do that little thing, your Ursula's voice gets a little quieter. Before I close this out, I want to share a little bit of psychology behind imposter syndrome so y'all know that it's not just some random little thought that pops up in some people's heads. Oftentimes, imposter syndrome actually ties to something called imposter cycle. So here's how it works. You take on a task and almost immediately you feel anxiety and self-doubt. So then either you over-prepare, hate perfectionists, or you procrastinate out of fear. That's me. When you finally finish, you feel maybe temporary relief, maybe even a little bit of pride, but then you chalk it up to luck or somebody else's help, and then the cycle continues. Understanding this cycle is crucial because it helps you understand that this cycle is just patterns, not facts. They're habits, and just like any other habit, they can be unlearned. Also, as I've said in a previous episode, feelings are not facts. Another thing that has blown my mind in this coaching journey is learning that imposter syndrome is typically highest in high achievers. Why is that? Because the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. But that doesn't make you an imposter. That just makes you curious and driven, and that is something to be celebrated. That's a strength. I want to leave you with this. You are more than enough just how you are. The fact that you care to do such a good job means that you're not a fraud. It means that you're a human. The next time imposter syndrome creeps in, I want you to remind yourself that you belong in every room that you step into. And if the door is closed, you kick it down. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the On Some Real Shift podcast. And if anything resonated for you or you think may resonate for somebody else, I ask for you to please like, share, comment, and subscribe. It helps me grow what I hope to be a community one day. Stay bold, stay brilliant, and don't forget, you are worthy. You've got this far more than you think you do. I will catch you next time. Peace.